Hi guys, Andreas from Danmoto here, and today I want to show you our new full system, Highwayman full system for the 2017 touring models. So that's a brand new one with the new 107 cubic inch Milwaukee-Eight engine, different than the old touring models, brand new engine, brand new exhaust, completely different fitment. Little detail here, normally you have your backs and the side panel. On this bike they're already taken off because they're at the paint shop right now, they get some custom paint done. So before you start taking off the exhaust, very easily, you have to first remove the backs. I mean, everybody should know how to do is just unlocks them, unclips them from the inside and just takes them off. So it's really simple. Don't forget the bolts. Two bolts, open, unclip, bolt off, back off. And then you have to remove the side panels. They're only held with 3 pins on here, here, and here. There's no screw or bolt or anything, you basically just pull them off. And then you're exactly at this state where we are right now. These 2 steps have been done a few days ago when you guys took off the parts for the paint shop. So what we do now is we start removing the mufflers first, the original mufflers. Removal is rather easy. There are 2 bolts here on top which hold the exhaust in place. And then there's 1 clamp here on the bottom. And that's actually the part we start with. The clamp is here. So take a wrench and loosen this clamp. And yeah, it's really tight. So you don't need to take off the clamp completely, just loosen it like this. So now we go to the bolts in the back. It's just these 2 here on top. First one. And the second one. So take the bolts out, put them aside, and now we can actually slide the muffler off already. Go over here, then it's easier. So it's a bit tight. If your one is really stuck, you maybe apply a bit WD-40 in here, like spray a bit on here, and then it's easier to go off. Okay, so I just took off the exhaust. It took a moment, that's why we cut here, because I basically just have to shake it. Now we have to do one more thing. There's a crossover pipe here. Oh, you can see this pipe. This goes on the other side of the bike. And before we go and take off the parts on the other side, we loosen this first. So that's the wrong size. Loosen this clamp here. This clamp, like this way you should be able to see it nicely. Okay, just loosen it, don't open it completely. Like this is fine, it's loose. And then there's another one which holds the crossover pipe here to the engine. Is this one here. This one you also have to take out. Okay. There you have to take out the bolt completely because we want to disconnect the bracket from the bike. Okay, so the clamp just goes off. This bracket here is, I hope it's a bit dark, I hope you can see that. Here's still a bracket, a black one, which is bolted to the engine. Basically it's no longer needed. You could take it off right now, but you could also leave it on the bike. It makes no difference, it doesn't matter anymore for the new exhaust. And you also don't see it when if it's there or not, so it's up to you if you take it off or not. If you want to take it off, it's just these 2 little bolts here. Take them out and you can remove the bracket. But that's up to you, it's not necessary. So now we go to the other side of the bike to remove the second muffler. So, and here you have a little heat shield which you want to take off first to prevent it from getting scratched. So the heat shield is held with two clamps, one here and one here. So first take off the heat shield. It's just to prevent damages. You could take off everything also with the heat shield, but you run the risk that you damage the parts, so I prefer to take them off first. So first clamp. And these clamps you have to open completely because you have to slide them over the exhaust pipe. So it's not enough if you just loosen them. The first clamp is open. Now the second one here. You can see the heat shield already coming off. You can basically just pull it off. And that's it. I put this aside. You don't need it anymore. So and now we can loosen the muffler. It's just one clamp here. And then the same two bolts as in the back. So just loosen this one. See, the clamp is loose, slide it off, and that's it. Now we just have to undo the two bolts here in the back. It's the same one as on the other side, just these two here on top. First one. Hold the exhaust already, because if you don't hold it, it will just fall down. You can see it just came off. If you don't hold it, it just falls, smacks on the floor, and you have a damage in it. So what we do now is we just remove this muffler, and that's really simple. We also just slide it off. Okay, I put this very fast aside. And now we still have to remove the crossover pipe here. We already loosened it on the other end. We removed the bracket so you can actually just slide it off. You just rotate it and pull a bit to get it off the flange on the other side of the header. Okay, so that's the crossover pipe. It's just slide it on the other side of the header, so you just pull it off, you do wiggle it off. One more thing we have to do, we have to remove these brackets. They're just pushed into this rubber mount, so all you have to do is pull them through here. And that's it. You also should take out the rubbers, because you don't need them anymore, and if you leave them there, they might just fall off like this, so just take them out completely. Now we do the same thing on the other side. Here's the same bracket again, so you just take it, pull it out. And that's it. Put it aside. You don't need these anymore. Okay, so next thing is we take off the heat shields from the exhaust. Very first piece to take off is this one here. That's held with two clamps, and one is here and one is there up front. Well, that's an easy job. You just open the clamps completely and then you can slide off the heat shield. And this section of the exhaust is the catalytic converter also. That's why it's a bit bigger than the rest. Loosening the first clamp. And it's open. Now the one in the back. See, the heat shield already comes loose. Make sure you don't damage it or scratch it. Be careful. Open the clamp, And now you can just take it off and put it aside. Next thing we have to take off is the heat shield here for the rear cylinder. Same idea again, just clamps which you have to take off. And there are two, there's one here and there's one here on top. So I start with the one here on the bottom. It's open. It's not completely open, so I have to go there once more. Okay, now the one on top. Same again, open the clamp completely, then we can pull off the heat shield from the exhaust system. You can see it's already loose, it's already shaking around. So once this clamp is open, we can take it off. Okay. No, still not. Okay, it's open. On the bottom also. And I just pull off the heat shield and put it aside. There's one more, the one for the front header. To be able to take it off, you need to take off the floorboard first. So if you leave the floorboard in place, you can't take off this heat shield, and you also can't take off the rest of the exhaust system. So we have to remove this. I'll show you very fast from the bottom. This is really simple. It's just two bolts, one here and one here. If you take them off, then you can remove the whole floorboard at once. So you go in here with a wrench from the inside, and then Allen key from the outside, and take it off. It's straightforward, no trick there. Keep the bolts. You will need them later to put the floorboard back in place after the new exhaust is installed. Keep these. So take the bolt out, and then I can remove the floorboard. Bolts and floorboard come aside now. Make sure you don't lose anything. We reinstall these later. So now here's a bit more space, and we can take off this piece here. If you leave this in place, there's not enough room for the exhaust, so we have to take off this bracket here. The front one can remain where it is. If you don't care about the front one, just take off the one in the back. Well, I'll go very fast and get the proper tool. Okay, so we remove here the bracket now, which holds the floorboard. It's really simple. It's just an Allen key here in the bottom. Just make sure you lose a long extension. There's quite a lot of force on this. That's like the last thing which we have to take off before we can remove the actual heat shield from the exhaust system. Okay, so put this aside, we need this later again. Now we remove the last heat shield, which is up front cylinder. It's again held with clamps, like always. So first one is here. And this next one is here on top. We just start with the one here on top. Just open the clamp again completely. Now the one on the bottom. And you can see the heat shield is already coming loose. Okay, so the clamp is open, and I'll just pull the heat shield off the bike and put it aside. And there's still one last bracket, which is this one here. We also have to remove this, and then we can start and loosen the exhaust and take it off. It's just one bolt here on top. It's really simple. Just go in and take off this bolt here. Just take off the clamps. Okay, so we just removed the clamp on the bottom. Before we take off the exhaust, we need to first unplug the two sensors. The one in the rear is here, so you first pull out the cable here. And you see, look here, the clamp is, the cables are held together with a zip tie here. You actually have to cut these zip ties. That's the first one. Then if you follow the cable, it goes in here, up here, and there's another zip tie. We'll install later new zip ties after we install the new exhaust. So that's the cable here. It's this black connector here. And you just pull it out, and then you can pull the cable through. And the one in the rear is already ready. And the front is a bit more complicated. So the front one is here. And there here up front is already a little plastic clip. That's not a zip tie, so please don't cut it. Here, you can just pull it out. Don't cut it, leave it where it is. And then the cable goes here, behind the exhaust down. So you pull it out. And here are now a couple of clips. You just pull out the cable. First one, second one here. It's like a plastic clip. You can just pull the cable out. Then it goes on, and here's this third one. There. Pull the cable out, and then the cable is already loose, and we're actually already back here where we have been before. And you can just unplug it. And here we go. So then you just pull the cable through the frame, down, and here also, look, here is the hose from the brake system, and the cable is actually behind the hose, so you have to pull it over the hose. And now the cable is free and we can take the exhaust off. Next step would be loosening the nuts here on the cylinder head flanges, front and back. It's 2 bolts each. That's the wrong size. Okay, here we go. So just loosen them. take off the nuts. You need these later again, so make sure you don't lose these nuts. And we're nearly done with the one on the rear. So these are the nuts, keeps them. Now the same up front. It's again two, one here, one there. But before we progress here, I'll take a piece of cloth to cover the engine, because once we loosen these two bolts, all the exhaust will come loose, and I want to make sure I don't scratch any parts. So I'll get a bit of old cloth and wrap the frame rail here and the engine. Okay, so you guys see I've wrapped here the front frame rail in a bit of old cloth, because when you take off the exhaust, high risk that you scratch it. So there's still the two remaining nuts here on the front cylinder. So on the upper one, you can use a normal socket wrench like this one here. On the lower one, you can't. There's not enough space, and you would just hit the frame with your tool. So you have to use a normal wrench there. First thing is, take off the first one nut, keep the nut. Then you go to the other side of the bike, and we'll use this. Just a normal handheld wrench. To loosen the one here on the bottom. Like with a socket wrench or an extension or whatever, you have no way to go in, there's just not enough space here. So you have to have a ½ inch wrench like this. That's really simple, just take off the nut. Now the whole exhaust is already loose, so I just hold it with one hand. And then slide off the flange here on top. And of course it's stuck in place, like always, nothing wants to go easy. And that's the exhaust system. We'll have to reuse a few pieces from this. We'll reuse the flanges and clips, and we reuse the O2 sensors. So that's the next thing we do now. We take these off, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we'll take off the original O2 sensors, clips and flanges. We start with the O2 sensors, 40mm wrench, go in, loosen them, and that's it already. Pretty straightforward. Make sure you don't get any dust or dirt or anything on the sensor itself. If you get especially oil or grease on there, then the sensor won't read anymore and you actually need to get a new one. So front, just unscrew it. Put it aside. So now we have to take off the clips and flanges here. These two separate parts, a clip and a flange plate. It's really simple. Just hold the flange, pull it over the edge, and you're done. And now you can slide off the flange. Same in the back. Take the clip, hold it, pull it over the edge, slide off the flange, and you're done. And now I want to show you something. That's the original Harley Davidson header which came on the bike, and that's ours. And I want to show you here the difference in shape on the ends. The original one has this rounded step down flange. You can see it's like a bump, a hump in the pipe which holds the clip, and then the rest of the pipe is neck down in diameter. So that's all made out of the same pipe. They have a tool for this where they use this pipe and just press it into this shape. So our one is a bit bigger in diameter, and it's completely straight and has a sharp edge here, it's flat. And why is this? I hope you can see this here. On the inside of this header you have exactly the same hump and bump you have on the outside, and it's very small in diameter here on the mating surface. So this restricts flow a lot. When the exhaust fumes coming off the engine, first of all, the diameter restricts the overall flow, And then when they hit this area here with the bump, there are a lot of turbulences in the exhaust and in the exhaust fumes. So just this little bit of pipe here, this irregular shaped pipe here, disturbs the flow in the exhaust a lot, and that's negatively impact performance. So I guess you ask yourself now, why does Harley do it in this way? This is very easy for installation. If it's because it's rounded, you put the exhaust on the bike, and even if there's a little angle difference, a little tolerance or whatnot, it will always seal good. It's easy to install and won't leak. So it's very maintenance friendly, but it's bad for performance. So on our header now, same header, same bike. The diameter is bigger. So it's like the biggest possible diameter you can ever somehow get into this engine. And this of course improves flow a lot. And the main thing is it's completely smooth. There's no edge, no bump, no diameter step, no nothing. So there are also no turbulences. The exhaust gases come in there and they flow smoothly through the pipe without any disturbances, and this is much better for performance. One important thing though, when you install our exhaust, you need to use special gaskets. You cannot install this exhaust with the original gaskets which are already in the engine. I take these out now, I show you the new gaskets, and then we can see the difference. So we just talked about the gaskets and the shape, so now we have to actually remove the original gaskets. You see this little ring here inside? That's not part of the cylinder head, that's a gasket, so we use a tool like this. It's a little hook. You go in between the gasket and the actual port, and then you pull out the gasket. First one, now we do the same in the front. Take my hook, I go in there, and I pull out the gasket. So I now want to show you the difference. These are the original Harley Davidson gaskets, which also has this rounded shape inside to match the original exhaust. And these are the gaskets you actually need when you install our exhaust. They're quite different. These gaskets are much thinner and they're completely flat on both sides. And also the inner diameter is a bit bigger. You certainly need these because they match up exactly with our exhaust. If you use these, our exhaust won't fit, it'll leak, the angle won't be off, it's just not going to work. Make sure you have these. The part number for these is on the instructions which you get with the exhaust system. They're available through Harley Davidson, this is an original Harley part, so it should be very easy to get, and they're also not expensive at all. Installation is really simple, you just take these and just slide them into the port, push them a bit in, and that's it already. It's just really straightforward. Same now on the front. I take the gasket, put it into the port, push it in, and that's it. So we're actually ready to install the new exhaust, and I want to show you our exhaust system once and show you the possible, the two options. We have two different options there, showing those. So these are our Highwayman 2-in-1 full systems for the new Milwaukee-Eight touring models. It's basically the same system, just available in two different color options. Both are fully stainless steel. That one here has a satin brushed finish to it. It's not shiny. And then we have the black ones. They're flat black completely everywhere. Also stainless. Basically the same system, just two different colors. Important thing to say about these are really fully stainless. Very often you buy a stainless steel exhaust and then actually the brackets are not stainless and the internal baffle and everything inside is not stainless, just cheap mild steel. Happens to you a lot. If you buy these, won't happen. Here everything is stainless. The fasteners are stainless, the bolts, the nuts, the bracket, the baffle inside, every single piece that's somewhere on this exhaust is fully stainless steel. All 3 or 4 grade, won't rust. So this exhaust will last a long time. It's really very durable, it's a really nicely made piece of kit. And it's also very, very lightweight. Another very important thing is these exhausts really give you a lot of performance. If you install this exhaust on your bike, unmodified, and just adjust the mapping to suit the new exhaust, you can gain easily 15 horsepower on top. That's a huge gain just for an exhaust system. So if you're looking for some better performance, a bit more speed, and also a lot of mid-range, these things give you a lot of mid-range, go for these, adjust the mapping, go to either you install like a power command or something like that, or a fuel pack, or you go to a dyno to adjust your map. These are the hot ticket for really low performance on this bike. And now we can actually proceed and install the exhaust on the bike. Okay, so we have to prepare the headers for installation now. We have to install the flanges, the clips, and the O2 sensors again. Very first thing we do is though, we put a bit of tape, masking tape, or this is electrical insulation tape, doesn't matter, there's some tape around here. This prevents the parts from getting scratched. So I've wrapped it a bit. Now I can put the flange here, put it over. And now we have to install the clip. It's just like on the original one. You have to get the clip over the edge here of the header pipe. So it needs a bit force because our pipes are bigger in diameter than the original ones, so it needs a bit force. Just pull it over. Just pull it over the clip here, and here we go. So that one is ready. It's the rear header, so we have to use the shorter O2 sensor. That's the one with the black connector, and directly screw it here in. And then you use a 40mm wrench to tighten it. Don't make it too tight, just a bit is enough. So that header is ready. We're gonna prepare the front one. It's exactly the same. Take the header, and like about an inch after the flange, I've wrapped a bit of tape around here. The tape gets removed later. It's just as an installation help that we don't scratch up the parts. So then you take over the flange, put it over there, take the clip, and get the clip over the end of the header pipe. So you have to apply a bit of force. It's not as easy as on the original one just because the size of the pipes is different. All pipes are bigger in diameter. So the clip also goes on a bit more difficult. So that's ready. Put it in there. Okay, so that's ready. Now the O2 sensor goes in the back. Just screw it in. Take the wrench. Tighten it a bit, and we're done. So the two sensors, the two headers are ready, sensors are installed, clips are installed. We can go to the bike now and we install the mounting bracket. Okay, so we have to install our mounting bracket now. First thing we have to do is we take off this cover. That's really simple. You just use an Allen key and take off these two bolts. There's no trick to it. First, second, just put it aside, we need it in a moment again. So next thing is our bracket installs here on these two bolts. So we have to take these two out. It can be that there's a little bit oil leaking from these two when you take out this bolt. So be prepared and maybe put a bowl here or have a little bit of cloth or tissue on hand that if it's leaking that you can wipe it away or catch the oil before it leaks everywhere all over the floor. We're lucky there's no oil on this one here today. So that's our bracket. It's really simple, it just goes on here. So you just hold it here on and put the two bolts in. So original bolts, original hardware, just reuse these. And then tighten these. And that's done. Now we can put the cover back on. So just take it, put it back in place, and put the two bolts back in. So it's pretty straightforward, just two bolts, nothing special. That's a plastic cover, so please be a bit careful with it. It's easy to get damaged, so don't over tighten these bolts or you might just crack it. Okay, so the bracket is in place. We have to prepare now one thing. We have to prepare this bracket here. There's a spacer which comes with the kit which moves this a bit out. So I'll get this very fast. Okay, so with the exhaust kit you receive 2 spacers and 2 bolts, a longer bolt and a shorter bolt. And they're meant for the 2 mounts of the floorboard. They move the floorboard a bit out to make room for the new exhaust system. Installation is very, very simple. The rear one we already removed earlier. Well, I'll show you later how this works when we put it back on. Right now just leave it like this, but we can prepare that one here already. So first thing is you take out this bolt here in the bottom, that one. Then the whole mount comes off the frame. So you put away the original bolt, you don't need it anymore. Use our one, which is longer. So what you do is you take our bolt, put it through the mount, take our spacer which comes with the exhaust, put it on here. And then install the whole assembly again. Don't over tighten or don't tighten the bolt right now, just make it hand tight, because we still want to adjust the position of this bracket when we install the floorboard again. That comes a bit later, so just leave it like this, it can still move. The other bolt and the other spacer which you got is for the rear mount, the rear one, which we'll put on later when the exhaust is in place. It's like the last step. So we put this aside right now, we use this later. Okay, so we install now the rear header. Sensors installed, flange plate and clip is installed. I'll cover the engine very fast because we don't want to scratch it up, and it's like really easy to scratch up the parts here. So just cover it up, cover this here. Then you slide the rear header in place and take the 2 nuts, put them on, and put it like hand tight. Make it hand tight. Don't over tighten the nuts so far because we still want to move the exhaust to be able to align everything properly. Make sure it's correctly seated in the head. As you just noticed, I just had to move it a bit because the angle was not absolutely correct. So you see right now it's hand tight. The nuts are both hand tight, properly seated, and I can still move it a bit, which helps us then align the exhaust. Now we do the same with the front header. I make the header very fast. Sensors already installed, flange plate and clip is installed. So we take the header and I go and get something to wrap here. So we do the same with the front header now. O2 sensors installed, clips and flange, or clip and flange, only one installed. So you see I've wrapped everything here because it's so easy to scratch things up. So take it in here. And you have to align the plate with the 2 bolts which are already in the engine, and then make sure the exhaust is properly seated in the cylinder head. So I've seated the exhaust properly in the engine in the port and put the flange on. Now we just put the nuts on. It's pretty simple. First one. Now the second one here on the top, same nut. Put it on here. Don't tighten it so far, just make it a bit hand tight, that the header is roughly in place. That's all what's necessary at the moment. So the exhaust is still loose, you can see it can still move. And now we install the muffler. And after the muffler is on, we route the cables and then we're actually good to go. So I get the muffler very fast. There's now a little trick to make sure, or to make it easier to get the muffler onto the pipes. I'll apply a bit of grease and oil in here, so it makes it easier to move the parts. I get a bit of oil right now. So I greased the inlets a bit. It makes it easier to move the parts later. So now the easy part actually comes. You slide the muffler onto the headers. See, that's why you shouldn't tighten them before, because everything is still loose and can move around. So, and now you have to rotate everything until everything aligns. That's the difficult part now. You can see how I do this. I rotate the whole assembly, and I rotate as long until my brackets here align, which they actually do right now quite nicely. So the holes in the bracket which we mounted earlier has to align with the holes which are in the bracket which is on the exhaust. And really all you have to do is rotating the pipes here until everything lines up. So, we just lined up the exhaust with the bracket. Everything looks good. And now we mount the muffler to the bracket. With the exhaust you receive these parts. That's 2 bolts and a little mounting dog bone bracket. This piece slides here from the back into the it slides here from the back into the bracket on the exhaust, and then the bolts go through here from the back through the bracket on the bikes, through the bracket on the exhaust, on the muffler, into this bracket which we just slid it in. I take it out once more just to show you. So basically you have this in here, and then you take the bolts from the back, put them through, screw them in here, and then tighten everything together. So I'll do this very fast and then we can proceed here with the installation. Okay guys, so I'll just tighten these 2 bolts. Just use the Allen key, go here in from the bottom and tighten. Rather simple. Make sure to apply Loctite on these. If you don't apply Loctite, the whole thing just shakes, vibrates, and the bolts may come loose. So that's quite important. When we talk about Loctite, just to make sure, you also apply Loctite on these 2 bolts for the floorboard. It's important. Apply Loctite basically floorboards everywhere, on these exhaust mounting brackets everywhere. And yeah, don't forget it, it's important, otherwise the stuff might just fall off while you're riding. So the exhaust is already roughly in place. What we do now is we tighten the studs, the nuts here on the cylinder head. So we start with the one on the back. Just get your socket wrench out and tighten them. Don't just tighten one completely, just tighten this, like exchange it, but you tighten one side, tighten the other, tighten one side, tighten the other. This way it moves in flat and level, so it gives you good seal. If you start to tighten one completely and then the other one, the whole flange will be bent a bit and it's not completely flat, and it's hard to get a good seal on these. So just tighten one a bit, go to the other, and tighten the other one again, go back, first one again. And this way just exchange between the 2 until both are completely tight. So that was the one on the back. Here's still my tape on the exhaust. Can't see it so well, it's black. So you have to take the tape off now before you forget it later. If you would forget it on there, it would burn into the exhaust when you run it. So make sure to remove the tape. And now we'll proceed to the front header. On the front header, remember it's a bit more difficult because you can't use a socket wrench on both bolts. So you have to exchange. You have to use the socket wrench on the upper one here to tighten a bit, and then you use your normal wrench to go on the other side and tighten here. So basically you have to use 2 tools at once. So it takes a bit longer. Idea is just the same. I also just tighten one by one by one by one. So you tighten this one a bit, then exchange, tighten the other. And actually we're nearly done here already. Okay, so exhaust is mounted, headers are tightened at the engine, muffler bracket is mounted. What we can do now is we remove here our covers everywhere. And now we can go to the fun part and we route the O2 sensors. You'll notice the O2 sensors are roughly in the same place as they have been before. So the routing of the cables is also roughly the same as before. We start with the one in the front. Again, here's this little plastic clip. You clip it back in. And then you start to route the cable. So watch me how I do it. It's a bit hard to explain. You better just watch exactly how I route it. So I put the cable through here, behind the brake, pull it through, and now I put it back into these clips which are here. So first clip, second clip, third clip. Now I route the cable back up here. And here I am. I can just plug it in. After we routed both, I will use some zip ties and tie it here together like it was before. So, back one, take the cable, you put it here behind the oil pressure sensor. Put it down here, in here, and then you go with the plug behind the frame rail here. Go through, pull it around here on the other side. And plug it back in. So, and to make the installation now look reasonably and clean, we use zip ties, and we tie them in exactly the same way they've been before. You remember we cut these zip ties earlier, so we just do them just like they have been before. We use black zip ties. And that's the first one. And then the second one here, where we zip tie the two cables to the hose here from the brake system. Okay, so now you have to cut the excess material here. First one, second one, and it looks just like it looked before. It's very stock. What we have to do now is we have to remount the floorboard. So that was the floorboard mount which we removed earlier, and now we use the spacer and bolt which comes with our exhaust set. Do not reuse the original one, you have to use ours. So you take our bolt, put it through here, spacer on, and then you screw it into the original mounting spot. Just make them hand tight right now. Don't over tighten these, or don't make them tight at all, because we still need to get the alignment of the floorboard correctly. So right now, hand tight only. Okay, so you see this can still move. This one earlier also can still move, both are still loose. I'll get very fast the floorboard, and then we put this back on because we still need to adjust here a bit. Now we have to remount the original floorboard. So look, both mounts are loose still. I take the floorboard, put them on here, and then I take the original nuts, bolts, and just put the bolts through. First, second, then the nuts, and then you tighten these. Same in the front, the bolt is already through. I put the nut back on there. and you just tighten the bolt. Okay. So important thing is, you can see now it's still loose, so we have to adjust the position to make sure it folds up easily and everything is aligned. And then we tighten the two bolts which hold the floorboards to the frame. Now check, make sure they can still fold up without problems and everything aligns properly. And then we're good. And there's still two more details. We still have to install the tension springs which hold the headers to the muffler. There are two springs, one for each header. And I get them very fast. The springs look like this, and to install them at best you use a little hook. I'll show you this with the lower one, then you can see it better. So I just take the spring, put it into one side. It doesn't matter if you use the muffler first or the header first. Then take your hook, pull the spring, put it in, and take your hook out, and the spring is in place. And then now there's a trick to it. After you install them, use some pliers. And you close the ends of the hooks a bit. These hooks on the ends of the spring. This prevents them from coming loose. If you don't do this, the springs just might pop off during your riding. So first one's in place. I do the second one now here. And there's a still little detail. I forgot to take off the tape here. So I'll take off the tape, put another spring on, and then we're done. Installation is done. Everything is on the bike. Everything is mounted. We go out and make a little sound check.